Hello. This is a PSA about Black women being strange fruited. However, there are messages in here that all women should hear. So, hello to all the good people. I am Dr. Ramela Janine, and this is Ramela Janine Global, where I talk about well-being and all the things that impact our daily lives. So I do have, this is unscripted, but I do have, a couple of notes that I want to hit. So if you are, unaware, there are a couple of instances where Black women have been found unalived hanging from trees as a strange fruit, okay? This is a growing problem, it looks like, unfortunately. And so you as a Black woman, need to be very careful about who you are interacting with. And mainly, I'm just going to kind of talk about online. There's been, some strange things that I've seen, or, with one woman, unfortunately, I don't know all of the circumstances where she was apparently running from someone down the street while he was trying to run her over. I don't know if that was a case of where he was going to, kidnap her and traffic her, kidnap her and just, I hate to say, just regular crazy serial killer stuff. Or was she, going to be strange fruited as well? But thankfully she got away. She was saved. But again, there were two other women, and I don't want to get too deep in this, and I should have said trigger warning, but it's a PSA about strange fruit. So I think, the trigger was there. The trigger warning was there. But be that as it may, we have to really just take a moment to be aware of our surroundings. So just a couple of things I wanted to say. When you are out in public, be alert and know who's around you, okay? Pay attention to who's paying attention to you. Most of us already kind of do that, but it's more so important now that we are all aware. And again, this is advice that's relevant for all women, right? A lot of crazy pervert stuff going on, a lot of weird things with the medical asses going on, the trafficking problem, I think, with the Epstein files has just made it more obvious that what some people thought was going on really is going on. So, the concern about women being trafficked is real. And other people get trafficked too, young boys are getting trafficked, and it's really strange right now. But specifically, I wanted to talk about interactions online, and just 2 points. One is, if you don't see, some sort of verification mark next to someone's name, regardless of the platform, be it a dating platform or be it, on social media, regardless of what that photo looks like, you don't know that it's them, okay? It may look like it's a Black person, you don't know that it's a Black person. There have been instances this week where people have, MAGA, white MAGA, has gotten outed for pretending to be Black people, and there was a report, put out saying that, this is a pervasive thing that MAGA is doing. They are, creating Black profiles to be in Black threads, for example, in the comments section, pretending to be Black, saying crazy stuff to try and make it seem as though there are actually Black people who agree with their crazy points. Kind of a tangent, but I'm bringing it up as an example of you don't know who you are interacting with unless they have a verification mark, right? You don't know who they are. I don't care how long you've been following them, how long they've been following you. I don't care if you've had really pleasant, message exchanges. And if and until you meet them in person, you don't know who they are. And to be doubly aware of anything that seems like, a crazy comment or comment, content, something that just doesn't seem right. Trust your intuition. It probably is not. Do not engage with that person, other than to say, I think it's a bot or whatever you want to do. Just so other people are kind of, made aware, like, hey, something's weird with this. And then go ahead and hit them with the block. If you are doing online dating, I don't online date. I don't, nothing against people who do. But if you choose to online date, again, an unverified profile, you don't know who that is. You have no idea who that is, okay? I don't care if you have been talking to them for a really long time and they're telling you who they are. And I've been catfished. Other people I know have been catfished. It happens. And it wasn't even a dating context. Like, it was not a dating site context. But, people get fooled sometimes because there's people who aren't right in the head and they're trying to do whatever they're trying to do. You never know someone's motive for not presenting themselves authentically online. That's not your issue to figure out, okay? If it's unverified, it's unknown, it's that simple. You don't know who they are. Okay. The next thing I want to basically talk about is the whole sort of when to decide to meet someone, either from social media or when you want to meet someone, from a dating site, if you are doing online dating. Very basic stuff. It applies to all women. Meet in public, obviously. Never, ever, ever. I don't care if you're married to him, because there's cases where, married women have gone unalived, in the vast wilderness where there's no cell phone signal. And I'm like, you can't blame the victim, but you do wonder, like, how did she agree to be in such a remote place with this person who she had some inkling, in her feelings that something maybe wasn't quite right. So again, listen to your intuition, not blaming any victims or anything. Hope everyone's family who has had that happen to them are, recovering as much as they can from the loss like that. But make sure that you're not that person. First date, you go on your own. You leave on your own. You don't accept any rides. You need to be very, very careful. Because again, even if the photo matches the person that you see in person, you don't know anything about them. So one of the things that I'm really concerned about with this online dating, because how was it that the black woman in Miami who was here visiting from Detroit, and I live in Florida, was able to be put in a situation where she could be, unalived as a strange fruit? Was it a case where she was, snatched, and that's how it happened? She was somewhere minding her business and she just got took. So again, be aware of your surroundings. Or was it a situation where she was online dating, right? And she thought she had met a match online, and the person was maybe really him, like the face matched the photos, but the intentions, were different than what she was expecting, obviously. There had to be some way that he got her there. And what I would say is, if you are open to, dating outside of your race, and not saying that bad things can't happen to you when you, date black men. If you're a black woman and you date black men, definitely bad things can happen. You can be, just as easily trafficked, SA, all of that is still possible. But, you have to be a little bit more, unfortunately, conservative in terms of, look and find out what you can find out before you even reply to that first message. If there's not a full name in the profile, eyebrow needs to be raised right off top. Some sort of cutesy little screen name, not for online dating. No, and not for even a DM. Like that message, if there's not a real name in the handle, their username, the real name needs to be in that message. That's a stop. No matter how good that photo looks to you, you can't play with your life. So if you then still choose to, kind of respond back to them, they need to give you verifiable information ASAP, so you can put the conversation on pause and do, some internet searching, researching to try and find out who that person is. If they've got, they're saying they do this type of work, they live here, look and see if they've got a LinkedIn. Try and do what you can to vet them before you even spend time chatting with them, okay? Yeah, just be suspicious, do your verification, meet in public the first couple of times. Never, ever, ever go anywhere remote. Again, don't care if you're married to them. You're in the vast wilderness, hundreds of miles away from the next person, and there's no cell phone coverage. That's not a place you go, right? So the first date, he wants to go to the park? No. No. First date needs to be somewhere where there's other people. You go there by yourself. You spend a certain amount of time with him, and you leave, and people know that you went there with to be on this date with this guy. And you do give whomever you trust. You don't want to tell your mom your business. Okay, tell your best friend his name is such and such. As far as I know, he lives here. This is his phone number. We're supposed to meet from this time to this time, because it's dangerous out here. I don't know what's really kind of wrong, but I think just sort of, the bad example that we have being set here in Washington has brains scrambled in a lot of ways. Men are behaving very poorly overall. Again, this is across racial groups. Women are, having issues with negative talk from the manosphere. And, in terms of Black women, two, as far as I know, there could be more, but two Black women have been strange fruited. And so think long and hard about how you interact with different people, online. And I'll even go so far to say is that, there's been instances where, in the past we've heard stories where one friend, invited another friend, to go hang out, and everybody's female, like we're all, hanging out with the girls. And then she gets there and she gets jumped, right? Who knows what sort of scenario could be that. So even in terms of like trying to make new friends, same-sex friends, platonic friends, be careful about how you interact with them and watch for signs, are they really behaving like a friend? Do they seem consistent? Is there any point in time where you're like, because if you're like, when in doubt, throw it out. You are better off being alone than hanging out with someone who really isn't, for you, and be that, a friend, your girl, like friends to hang out with, or a love prospect. So that is what I will say about that. Just be safe, be smart, and report anything that looks suspicious. Report it and block it. Okay. And, if this was your first time here, thank you for watching until the end. If you did like what you've heard, then please, thank you in advance for liking, dropping a comment and subscribing. And if you really, really love it, thank you for sharing. And so until my next story time or chat, take care. Bye.